It's a pleasure to be here today with Stephen Frink, publisher of Alert Diver magazine and a prolific underwater photographer, and Liz Parkinson, Hollywood stuntwoman and accomplished scuba and freediver. Liz, I know your background. You started out as a swimmer, I believe. So how did you make the transition?
So yeah, I was a swimmer from a little kid growing up in South Africa. Sport was always a huge focus in our families' lives, and it's a very competitive country. And you know, you go to school, and it's sort of what sport does your kid play type deal. And I don't know why. I think it was because my best friend at the time was a swimmer, and I didn't like the fact that she could beat me. So I got my folks to sign me up for some proper coaching, and I'm quite tall, and I started to beat her, and I started to enjoy the competition aspect of it. I've kind of a competitive nature that way, so I loved the concept of swimming and being in a sport that you win by yourself. I enjoy team sports, but I like the idea of winning as an individual. And so my swimming career took off, and I competed for South Africa as a junior, and I moved over to the US on a scholarship when I was 18, and then finished my college career in US NCAA Division I swimming, and fell into the world of diving. I lived in Hawaii for a while, and I needed a job. And so I got a job working at a dive company, and I was an open water certified diver. And I just sort of fell in love with it and picked up certifications, and then started traveling the world, and one thing led to another. And when I swam, I was a sprinter. And when I breathed in my event, when I took a breath, I broke my stroke. So because I was only swimming 1 or 2 lengths, my coaches trained me not to breathe in my 50 freestyle. So I do sort of a semi-breathe up. At the time, I wish I knew now about breath hold. I wish I could take that back 20 years and implement it, because I think I would have probably done a lot better. But yeah, they coached me and trained me. I spent years and years swimming with weight belts underwater to get my breath hold up. And so freediving came naturally to me, and I really enjoyed it. And that just took off, and I became involved in lots of freediving programs. And I worked in different dive shops and ended up at Stuart Coves in the Bahamas. And Stuart really gave me the opportunity to use my passion for breath hold and being in the water and swimming on film production, and met photographers like Stephen and various others that came down to Stuart's, and he was really sort of the base of underwater Hollywood. A lot of film production has been filmed in the Bahamas for a number of reasons. One thing led to another, and that's kind of where my career sort of took that change in trajectory, but sort of led me to sort of where I am now.
And so I know you've been on a lot of, productions that I'm sure people watching have seen: Avatar: The Way of Water, Wakanda Forever, and then I think most recently, or one of the more recent, the cave rescue mission. Yeah. And so as far as the training that you do, how do you take someone who, is an actor who may have no scuba or swimming only experience, or may not even be comfortable in the water, and how do you get them to a place where you're really bringing out their best on camera?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And Steve, I know you've worked with a lot of people as well, taking their photos, and having to have models and actors in front of camera, teaching them how to look in front of a camera is a lot of that same coaching. So when it comes to working with actors and people that need to do stuff underwater, obviously safety is the number one aspect. And part of my job is not only being a stunt performer and doubling the actor, but then also training them. And you have to remember that a lot of these actors are doing it because they have to. Some of them don't necessarily want to do it. I do what I do because I enjoy it and I love it. And every now and again, you get an actor who thinks this is the coolest thing, and they take it to the next level, and they get certified, and I meet them on the weekends and we go out diving together. But there's some who are like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I have to do it. Can you make this as painless as possible for me? But when you're working on a set like Wakanda, the actress that I worked with, amazing lady, she was 70 and she'd never put her head underwater.
Wow. And
she has to do a 1.5 minute breath hold in front of her child in the show, and herself as a younger mother in the shot. And it's 1.5 minutes. And we're working with really great underwater film department. And so the main focus is getting them comfortable in the situation that they have to be in, teaching them the steps to be comfortable, number one. Number two, you don't want to worry too much about the breath hold. You just want to make sure that they are comfortable doing their action. So going through being underwater, acting underwater and acting on the surface can be quite different. And, you've got salt water, you've got chlorinated water. There's lots of dimensions there. And then the second part of the training is working with the camera department, because when you take someone underwater, as they go underwater, that's not action. You have a huge set. I mean, there's 50 to 100 people above the water surface waiting for the shot to happen. And I try and put myself in the position where I take the pressure off the actor. I communicate with the adults, or the ADs and the director up surface on the top, the camera department in the water, so that the timing is right. They can't start their action without the camera being ready. So it's a very big timing process, and every underwater DP has their own way that they like to do it. So it's knowing all these ladies and gents in the water and knowing how they like to do it. It's also timing it with the other actors that they're performing opposite, which in itself is a challenge, because they may not necessarily want to be there either, or you're working with a child, which is always a different scenario in itself. And then you come to the breath hold, and then you come to the fact that this person now has to hold their breath and look natural underwater, something they've never done before, for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. So there's many, many steps to it. There's many tricks of the trade. Continuity is a huge point in the water. The clothes they wear, bubbles on their face. So it's definitely been a learning curve. And I like to think that every production I go into, I start with a beginner's mind. So I go into the production and I just sort of pretend that I don't know anything. And now I've got to build up to where the actor is comfortable. And I have to make sure that I can take all their concern away. So all they have to focus on is on what they have, their performance, and be safe. So yeah, it can be quite a lot.
I could imagine. And as far as, safety on set, Dan has started out with the 24/7, 365 emergency hotline. I'm just wondering if you've ever had any cases where you've had to call Dan, whether it's about, a routine, medical concern, or an emergency situation, or any Dan resources you've found helpful in your work.
I mean, I think from just an education standpoint, sort of learning the way of Dan, learning about the different sort of rescue CPR courses that I've done are vital. We have to have them to work as in performance. I have to have it, like it's a requirement. Myself, I have not been in a position where I've had to make that call. It's also not my call to make. On a film set, there's levels and there's positions that are covered. And so it would mark that if something happened in the water, then I would alert medic and they would take it from there. So me personally, no, I haven't ever had to, thank God, ever been in that situation. I mean, there's been mistakes and there's been things, but luckily when you work on a film set, especially, it's very different from working in the environment. So Steve and I have done a lot of work in the ocean. We've done a lot of work in what I would call a very much uncontrolled environment. On a film set, on a stage, it's a very, very controlled situation. Everything is broken down bit by bit by bit. So you're not doing these massive scenes. Everything's edited together. So the requirements that we have for the actors far exceed what their performance needs to be. So on set, no, safety is taken very seriously, but thankfully we've never had to implement that. The ocean may be a little bit different. But it is controlled, and so it's all safe. Like when I work with sharks, you see me in a photograph, but there's a whole bunch of people on the other side of the lens that you can't see that are there, including the photographers as well. Like I've had Steve push sharks out of my face many times.
I've enjoyed hearing as you were coming in your story about one of your first underwater shots, I believe, with the shark, and how that was taken by you, and just hearing about your career and knowing Stevens. I'd love to hear more about your background working together.
Well, as Liz commented, we first met at Stewart Coves, and I'd been there many times, and they're really good about providing talent. They know that they host a lot of production, and so when they hire people, they need them to be good on a boat, but it helps that they look good, that they're skilled in the water. And when I would go there on location, I could confidently expect that there's going to be talent for me to shoot, right? So Liz walked down the dock, and I was already predisposed to know that tall people do better in swimming because I was a swimmer, right? And I did I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I did a TV show called American Photographer photo magazine.
Okay.
And it was an ESPN thing.
Okay.
For an American Photography magazine was
Yeah.
the host, right? So the hook was a professional photographer would have a celebrity, and my celebrity was Matt Biondi.
No way.
Yeah,
How cool is that?
Five gold medals, and he competed in 3 Olympics, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And
yeah.
we're doing it in Guanaja, right? So he was coming in, I was coming in. We met at the airport, and the producer was there, and he got off the plane, and I said, "What are you going to do with this man? He's a foot taller than I am. Are you going to like put him in a ditch? Are you going to put me on a block? How are we going to do these shots?" And Matt laughed. He said, people are very surprised when they understand that we're 6'8", because the only time people see us is at the Olympics, and we're all in the blocks, and we're all tall, or you wouldn't have 8 of us being that good
No, right?
at the Olympics, right?
And they're all the same. They're all big guys. Yeah,
they're all big guys. So
big people.
anyway, so I saw, long story to tell you, I saw Liz walking down the dock, and I said, "Man, that girl's a swimmer." Big shoulders, tall, and they move different too. Swimmers move a little bit different. There's little undulation, like, particularly if they're a butterflyer, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they move different. So we had that in common, but her water skills, that was really it. I mean, no surprise, but the easy familiarity in the water, but we had to shoot topside stuff too.
We did. I'm slightly more awkward on land than I am in the water, but you helped me with that, I think.
I know. Our famous shot together was.
Oh, the beat. Yeah.
You tell them the story.
So we had Aqualung come down on a specific shoot to do a series of photos that Steve was taking.
Catalog,
all their gear. Yeah, all their. It was it pink or purple?
I don't know.
Can't remember. Anyway, we were. Stuart took us around to this great location on this beach, and they wanted someone sort of running down the beach like, Happy Days, with a scuba tank on their back and their head swirling in like bikini bottoms and a vest. And I said to Steve, I was like, "So you actually want me to wear the tank?" I wish they had a velo now, because it would have been so much easier. But yeah, so that was our shot. And I think that year at DEMA, they used it everywhere. I mean,
everywhere.
I still get people sending me photo. Actually, in the RAD booth here,
Yeah.
there's a photograph that you took of me in the Nassau Blue Hole, of me in some Aqualung gear. And I looked, I was like, "Is that me?" I haven't seen the photo in ages. I mean,
I still see them too. They're pretty faded by now, but I still see them.
Yeah. There's, the shops needs like a reboot in photos when you see me. But like at least once a year, someone will send me a photo, a turkey or some random dive shop somewhere.
So anyway, that gave us a giggle for about 3 years afterwards.
Yeah. And it still comes back, man. It still comes back. But
and then we did other things that we were out at West End. We were doing some Tiger Beach stuff.
Yep.
And then we wanted to go to the Sugar Wreck. And
that's right. It's the
and that's I knew you for all the dive stuff we did, but that was the first time I think we ever worked with your skills as a freediver.
I think so. Yeah. Because that was when you told me that whenever I'm in the water with the shark, I'm not the most important person, and I'm not the most important thing in the photograph the shark is. So I go behind the shark. I always forget that. But you were really helpful. You really helped me. You're like, "Liz, you don't have to see a fish to look. People don't know because they can't see what you're looking at." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that." My blonde hair shining through. But yeah, you were really. I think. I mean, I do. I still. Every now and again, I'll do a shoot, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Steve said, look at that." It's just like automatic in my head. I still think of those conversations.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the people on a film that have to be there.
Yeah.
And I've been lied to so many times on shoots over the years. We book models, and they tell their booking agent how skilled they are in the water. But then you're on an island and you find that they can barely swim.
Yeah, I know. It's a constant, I've come across that many times.
And well, like once I shot Victoria's Secret, and
oh, I'm sorry for you.
but my job was to just shoot the over-unders, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a model there, Paulina.
Okay.
All right, but she wasn't a water person really.
Yeah.
And so they were thinking, well, what can we do to, because it was a bathing suit shoot, right? And obviously she was good for that, but she couldn't put her head in the water.
Yeah.
And she said, "Frink, over under."
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
So.
Yeah, I run into that as well. People saying that they're better in the water than they say they are. And I think the water is great because it's such a, you automatically know before they get in the water what your day is going to be like. It's either going to be a really great, easy day, or you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be here for hours. And there's no secret in hiding it. You can't fake movement in the water. It's the one, you can fake a run, you can fake, you know, driving a car and looking like you can do it, but you can't fake movement in the water. And so sometimes I'll get on set and it won't only be the actor that I'm training. I'm also training their stunt double. But yeah, I run into that same issue where, and the stunt people tend to be a little bit more apt where they can pick up on it really quickly and they can do it. But there's been a lot of times where we've had to send other people in because they don't have the breath capacity, and the actor has to do it for 20 seconds, but then the stunt has to do it for 2.5 minutes. It's a little bit different.
Liz, when I was doing the article on Avatar: Way of Water, and I was talking to John Landau, and he was explaining to me the whole thing of how motion capture happened and why it had to happen, the way it happened on that set, and why the camera people couldn't be on Scuba and things like that. Why don't you explain that whole science?
That's a great question. Yeah, I get asked that a lot. So Avatar was a very unique experience for filming as well as for being a water person. It's kind of like a unicorn production. I would love for another Avatar: Way of Water to come around, but I'm not sure it will for a while. So Jim Cameron wanted to, it's an animation, and we all know that. And the land stuff that had been done in the original Avatar was motion capture. So you're in a volume and you're in a space, and you have all these balls and sensors all over your outfit, situated in different places on your face, so that the camera can pick it up and then they animate the action. So Jim wanted to do the same thing, but he wanted to do it underwater. Now there's other productions like Aquaman. That was shot dry for wet, meaning the actors never got into water. They were hanging on cables and pretending that they were floating, and you can tell from the quality of the film that it was not shot in the water. Wakanda Forever went a step closer, and they did shoot in the water, but it wasn't motion capture. It was done on a blue screen. So that in itself is a completely different way. And then they create the animation, they build up the animation on the images that they get. Motion capture, again, is much more detailed. And it was one of the reasons why it took so long for us to shoot it, because the technology is brand new, and Jim created it to make the movie. And so I think the first obstacle they had to reach was, how are we going to get these performers underwater capturing their motion for the film? In a motion capture situation, we can't have any bubbles. The sensors that we wore all over our suits, I think there was like 75 that were all over my wetsuit. We had Oceaner wetsuits, silver wetsuits with yellow stripes, and it was all done for camera. And the cameras were designed, we had, man, I counted like 75 cameras on this in the tank, in the volume that we worked in. We each wore cameras. We had underwater cameramen, and we had outside cameramen and in windows around the tank videoing all our motions. So they were capturing all these images. But the problem that they came up with was that every time a bubble escaped, the camera would shoot and it'd get that. That was a sensory. In the eyes of the camera, so you'd have the person here, and all of a sudden, like, half their head would go in this direction because it was capturing the bubble. So like, well, how are we going to fix this? So like, well, rebreathers, because there's no bubbles. But rebreathers are not the most glamorous things to perform in. So, and that's a huge learning curve. That's a huge other monster in itself. So they came to the idea that, well, we're just going to have to train everyone to hold their breath, because if they release bubbles, it's going to screw the shot up. So they're just going to hold their breath, and we're going to perform that way. So Kurt Kroc from Performance Freediving took the actors for a year before the stunt performers came on set, and he trained the actors, Sigourney, Zoe, Sam. We had 5 kids that were new and upcoming actors, that Bailey Bass, Jack Champion, Trinity Bliss, and then we had Stephen Lang, who plays Quidditch, and they all went off and they did a year of training so that they knew how to hold their breath. They knew the timing, because that was hugely important for them. So that they had a good breath hold and everyone was on the same page. And it was, water can be shot very quickly. Like you said, we could do this your way and it will take us really long, or we could just all train it my way and it will be a lot faster and more efficient. So to your point, exactly, James Cameron and you have the same mindset. And so, yeah, so for Avatar, it was all breath hold.
It's incredible to hear about all the behind the scenes work. Just as someone who, when I first saw The Way of Water, I wasn't even a diver at that point and just was
Oh, wow. So
such
you're
a
like new.
I am. I became certified after working at Dan, so it's been wonderful entering the world of it. And I don't know, just hearing about just the 1 year or more of training that went into just making sure there were no bubbles interfering with the motion capture on the face is
Yeah.
incredible. Just I didn't even know there were jobs like what you do, and it's just a dream job, I imagine. I'm curious if in those situations when you're training people who are so committed to the acting craft, do you ever have situations where maybe they're pushing themselves to a point where you feel like their safety might be at risk and you have to kind of advocate for that? Or
I haven't yet. There are some who will definitely try to do it. The stunt guys tend to be the ones that push it a bit harder than the actors. The actors are like, yeah, man, that's cool. The stunt guys, I'm like, okay, guys, we're not going to be doing 5 minutes, so let's just all like control ourselves. But I'll tap you out at 3:30, and they're like, no, let's go to 4. Okay, 4 minutes, and that's it. I'm pulling you up at 4 minutes because they'll go and go and go and go, and you don't want people to start passing out and stuff because it just makes the day very complicated and long and boring. But yeah, you always have to stay on top of that for sure. So yeah.
well, thinking, I know a lot of your work is in freediving and breath hold, but the cave rescue productions, I believe, had some side mount and more complicated kind of technical and scuba. Do you kind of interested to hear about how that differs, you know, managing safety with freediving versus, you know, the gear involved with scuba?
Well, yeah, anytime you have compressed air on a set is definitely a different kettle of fish, and it requires different personnel, dive masters and instructors on the set, you know, to monitor that. And obviously certifications have to be involved, and you can't be doing breath holds on scuba. And so yeah, there's it's a different kettle of fish. Thai cave rescue in itself was different because we were cave diving with non-certified divers who are now side mounting inside caves, which is logistically you just pile on safety people. You just pile on experienced cave divers and people who are good in scuba, and you just break it down. And at that point, you need to simplify it, and you need to communicate that with the adults, with the directors and the AD department. And you just be like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. We can't have 4 non-certified divers on side mount in an overhead environment. So we need to figure out how to do this. So then that's your job to step in and be like, no, this is not going to work. Like, we can't do it this way. We need to be mindful of them. We need to be mindful of the situation. And there's always those people that surprise you. Thai Cave Rescue, we had a couple of actors that were just amazing, and they loved it and they fell in love with it. And some of the actors like, I never want to do this again. So those are the guys that you really have to put extra safety on because they do not want to be there. So yeah, working with gear, but then it's just a voice. You have to say, you know, we can't do it like this. This has to change, and you just change it. I mean, at the end of the day, the safety and productions are good that way. I mean, they don't want something to happen, and they typically don't know anything about diving anyway, which is clear when you hear scripts and they're like, oh, grab the oxygen tank. I'm like, it's not an oxygen tank. The amount of times I've told them, but they're like, yeah, but people think that it's oxygen. I'm like, yeah, but it's, anyway, that's a whole nother script changes is a whole nother thing. But yeah, scuba obviously definitely has a different dimension to it, and different level of certifications completely.
So I know you were an instructor as well. So are there any, just interested in how your kind of perspective on dive safety has changed from when you started out as a diver to where you are now? Just,
you know, I don't think it really has changed all that much. I mean, I think I'm a PADI instructor, and they're pretty good in their courses and solidifying that safety in you from the get-go. You know, Dan, ever present as well, courses they do, safety is number one. So I don't think from teaching to effectively, if I'm not in front of camera, I'm teaching. So I think it's a very easy crossover. It's not too complicated. It's just always something there that's important to discuss, and always reassuring the person who you're working with that there's never a point. All you have to do is say no. And typically when I work with anyone, I'm never, even on the Thai Cave Rescue, I was never further than an arm away. I adorn green suits and blue suits quite a lot in my profession. I have a nice little collection of them. So I'm always an arm, even if there's a hole, I'm like, okay, we can do it like that, but I must be able to reach them. So you guys need to cut a hole in the cave and I can stick my hand through and grab their regulator, or give them a regulator if they've brought their, they're doing a free dive down, just so that if they get stuck, I can give them an air source. So, but from the perspective of teaching as an instructor to what I do now, it's the same. It's safety number one, and you just go from there and teach within their capacity. Yeah.
And so your hat did remind me, I know you're an avid conservationist.
Yeah. Is it the shark armor one?
I believe it is. Would just love to hear more about your conservation work. And one thing I was thinking about too is a lot of the time speaking with people who are considering diving or are brand new, sometimes they cite anxiety about sharks, which I know is a common misconception that you're doing a lot to try to debunk and advocate for the importance of them in the ecosystem. So just interested to hear about any encounters or positive experience you may have had with sharks in the water and your work to protect them.
So loads of positive experiences with sharks. Quite a few not so positive. We were together in Cat Island. Do you remember when we were doing the oceanics?
I do remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did we get in trouble?
No, I don't know if we necessarily got in trouble, but it was one of the few times where I was like, I just need to take a minute. And you're like, you should take a minute. I was in a bathing suit. Classically, everyone else is in like dark wetsuits because that's what's safe. And I'm in a bathing suit. And
I do remember that.
Yeah. Lots of oceanics. So we probably had 10 or so. And they're amazing. They're my least favorite shark to dive with, I think, but they're just these massive airplanes, and they pack hunt, and they swim around you, and you see one, and that's great, and you see two, and that's okay. When you hit 10, it's a bit challenging. And there was a female, and she came swimming in, and Steve looked at me, and I was on the surface, and he was like, okay, so I wanted a shark coming towards him and me swimming just sort of above its fin.
I know
just
that
to
photo.
The side. Yeah. But I was coming in like this, and I got it. She was about 40 feet. He looked at me, I kicking like mad, got down onto the shark's back. And as I did that, and I think we eventually did get the shot, but one of the attempts, one of the other females had come from over his shoulder, and she just like landed on top of me.
Yes.
And I was just like, it was like, I felt this like really soft stomach, like landing, she was huge, right, like pushing me down. And I just remember stopping and looking at him, and he looked at me, and I was like, I'm going up. I think I had to get on the boat for like 10 minutes just to be like, okay, that was not okay. Like, I don't know why they were doing that, because I'd never seen them come that close to one another. But that was the one moment, I think, with you. I know you've had your camera swum off with tiger sharks before, and I've seen that. A couple little nicks here and there from feeding them and not paying attention to what I was doing. Always my fault, never the shark's fault. There's a lot of people that do a lot of great work, and I don't think there's really one way that's better or not better. But I love the idea of photography as a medium to portray sharks. You look at an image of a shark and you're like, oh, that's a cool shark. Mm-hmm. But then you have an image of someone with the shark in the picture, and then you put the perspective of size and depth and breath hold, and it adds like a multi-dimensional view of that photograph. It's almost like you're seeing it in 3D, and it's a 2D image, or a single, it's a flat image. And I just love that idea of using photography to promote that you can swim with sharks and you can be around them. And it can be safe. I mean, like I said, they don't see all the safety divers around, but still at the same time, I love that. And I've been fortunate to work in places like the Bahamas with Stuart and have people like Stephen take my picture, where those images can be portrayed. And a lot of the stuff that I do, those images are vital to the message that we try and share with a lot of kids, especially teaching in schools about different legislation, working with Shark Angels and Patty Aware on different programs that they have, educating kids about the ocean, how important it is to be mindful of the resources that we have, and try not to use plastics, and starting at home and doing what you can to even if it's just a small thing, it's better than not doing anything at all. And so using sharks as a tool to promote that is something that I love and am still very passionate about.
Well, is there anything that we haven't covered? I know, also, is there any upcoming projects or work that, you're able to tease or would like to promote?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple shows that I've been working on recently. There's a new TV series out at the moment that we're working on called Advocacy. It's Don Johnson, who plays a cruise ship captain, and Joshua Jackson, who was in Dawson's Creek and The Mighty Ducks. Yeah, anyway, that was my kid sort of athletic movie when I was little. And he plays a doctor. It's kind of like a 911 meets Love Boat type story, and we've done some shots on that, and it's a really fun shoot. The crew's awesome. And then we've been working on the new Dexter series, the prequel to the original Dexter show. So this is sort of Dexter as a younger guy. We've been fortunate to work on a couple shows that are coming out now. So we worked on the Monsters series, the story of the Mendez brothers, which has, I believe, out on Netflix now, or Peacock, one of those streaming platforms.
It's on Netflix now.
It's on Netflix, yeah. And then, some of the Lioness, Yellowstone, 1923. I'm trying to think of Lincoln Lawyer. So we've just done, like you said, to your point earlier, there are pieces because there's not a lot of, ocean work done in Montana, but there is water stuff, and water is important. And so there are scenes that use water, and because everyone's like, why would you work on Yellowstone? I'm like, well, just wait for the final episode of season 5 and you'll find out. I've got a couple projects potentially might happen. I won't know yet until I sign the contract. So hopefully those will happen. I don't know. You never sort of know until the last minute. But no, just waiting for James Cameron to give me another call about Avatar 4. So, come on, Jim, let's go, buddy. Let's get it going. But excited to see, I think Avatar 3 is coming out this time next year, December of next year. So that will be an interesting, and I heard it's bigger and better than the second one. So,
well, where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, all the regular social media platforms. I'm pretty active on that. I'm not so big on Twitter, but I mean on TikTok or any of those. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I try and keep up with it. It's kind of hard because I'll work on a cool movie. I just did a show with Elizabeth Moss, and Kate Hudson, which was it was a lot of fun. It was really funny. So I can't really say anything about it because it's still in post-production, so it's still being worked at. But as soon as trailers come out, then once they've sort of ignited that, I can. And that was the cool thing about Thai Cave Rescue. There was an NDA, but there wasn't, because everyone knew what happened anyway. It was kind of, the story was already known, so it was much easier to talk about that. Avatar is still very heavily protected in NDAs, and sometimes they're like, yeah, we prefer you not to talk about this. I was like, okay, or how we did this.
Yeah, you might want to work again, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. There's that. You don't want to be the person that if they tell you. And I remember John Landau always saying, if I put it out to the world, feel free. If I don't put it out for the world, you get the message, right? Yes, sir. Yep, no problem. If you post it, I'll post it. If not, and even then, like, I still sort of, it's their story to tell, and it's a great story. So it'll be fun to see how that develops. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Liz, for taking part in this interview today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for the opportunity to hang out with a buddy again. That was good.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. Thank you, guys.
Clearly we got to get wet.